Pops, another great guest, James Meeley, runs Sequential Treasures. And folks, I don't know if you're into comic books, comic book art, fandom, or collecting, but I think you're just going to have a good time. He is a like-minded individual that I have enjoyed watching. He does interviews with comic book artists. He has a couple different channels and things that he works on. Passionate guy. And James, I can't thank you enough for spending time with me. And let's talk Sequential
My
Treasures,
pleasure.
man.
Yeah. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to start? Start at the beginning.
So,
What
so
got me
what
into
did
comics, or what
where
got the
did
business going?
where
Where do
did
you want to
where
go?
did where did little James grow up? Let's go start at the beginning. Let's start like when
Uh,
did you get like your first comic book? Like, what's the earliest part of all
okay.
this?
Again, I recently did this on Aaron Lopresti's channel, where I do
Okay,
a
yeah,
show with him once a month. It's called Comic Art Combo. We do it the last Saturday of every month on his channel. We just did one last Saturday, and this one I did 2 months ago. It was in February. This was February's episode, and my starting of my comic thing, the starting of the comics, it's not even comics. It was a Spider-Man blanket and the Incredible Hulk with the Rage Cage from 1978. I was 4 years old
awesome.
when I got these things, and I didn't know who these characters were. I didn't know about comics or anything else. I just thought the characters were cool, and of course, I got the Hulk because the Bill Bixby show. I loved watch that growing up. I loved the Bill Bixby Hulk show, and that's where it started. The first comic I ever saw or read was Savage She-Hulk #2, which some kid had brought to school. I was in first grade at the time. This is 1980, the winter of '80. I remember it was cold, and he brought it into school and he let me check it out during class. And it was kind of awesome, but it didn't really register with me just yet. But it's interesting that that issue was the first issue with interior art by artist Mike Vosberg, who 30 years later in 2010, I would start selling Mike's art for him. So it's kind of the whole thing right there is just kind of funny how it turned out that way. But the one that got me was several years later after getting comics from like, G.I. Joe and Transformers and Star Wars over the years, just because I love the franchises, not because I love comics. I got those. And then in 1987, October of 87, I was in my freshman year of high school in ninth grade. And my best friend was in the same class with me. We hadn't been in the same class for like two or 3 years. And this other kid was in the class with us who he had met the year before. His name was Eric, and Eric was a big time comic book lover. And he was a Marvel guy, and my friend was more a DC guy. So so we're at lunch one day, and this kid from another class comes over to our table, and him and Eric start trading comics. The way you would do, because like
Mhm.
you got the money to buy everything, so you trade with your friends and
Yeah.
people so you can read everything. And he ended up getting this one book in the trade that he didn't want, and he looked over at me and he's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm not really a DC fan. Do you want this?" And it was DC Comics Presents number 69, featuring Superman and Blackhawk. Great Irv Novick and Dick Giordano cover. And I'm just like, I'm not into comics. I'm like, man, it's free. Who doesn't like free? So oh yeah, I'll take it. And I took it home and I read it, and I don't know what it was about it, but it just blew my mind. I'm like, this is awesome. And so I went into school the next day and I found that kid he was trading with. And I'm like, hey, do you have any more of those trading comics? And he's like, yeah, I got some stuff for trade. Why? You got something you want to trade me? And I go, no. And I dug in my pocket and I put like the $2 or $3 I had for lunch money. I said, but could I buy some from you?
Oh, it's like gold if you had cash.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, yeah, sure, let's go. And so we went over to his table and I picked out 4 comics for like the $3 I had. I got Amazing Spider-Man 260, great cover with the Hobgoblin punching Spider-Man through a window and Harry Osborn's ducking for cover. Great classic image. Made me a Friends and DeFalco fan for life. And then the next one was Incredible
Look at
Hulk
this. This is
309. Great
so
Mike
good.
Mignola cover. And it was the final issue that Sal Buscema did in his 10-year run on the book. Then I got Hulk
Look at
315,
that. That's where it
second
all
issue
started.
done by
Look at that.
John Byrne of
That's
his
so
short
good,
term
isn't it?
run.
Isn't it? It's just so nice.
And that's the thing is, all these books I got, they all had to deal with the
That's
covers
awesome.
being awesome.
I
And the
love looking
last
at
one I
old
got,
art.
and this is again another one, just like the Savage She-Hulk issue with Mike Vosberg, I got Strange Tales Volume 2, number 11, featuring Cloak and Dagger and Doctor Strange. It was a split screen cover image by Kevin Nowlan doing Cloak and Dagger and Doctor Strange in two separate images. Interesting about that
Yep.
book,
Yep.
that is the first published work of artist Dan Lawless. Now remember, this is 1987 when I picked this up. I started working with Dan in 2017. 30 years later, just like Mike Vosberg. So two of the artists I currently work with
That's so
were
cool.
the guys who were like in the very early stages of me getting into comics, and I work with them now. And so that's where it all begins for me. And ever since then, just 35 years later, oh God, 35 years, that makes you feel old all of a sudden. 35 years later, and suddenly now here I am, and it's been a
Oh,
ride.
we all have such fun journeys too. It's funny how there are a lot of similarities, and it kind of creates us to have this really great connection. Yet a lot of the stuff is just so different, and you know,
Well, the interesting
yeah,
thing I
it's
thought
just
about
so
my story is all the books I had read previous, both before I was a big fan and right after I started to become one, they were all Marvel. But the one that got me to become a fan was a
it's a
DC
DC
book.
comic. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
I just thought it
DC
was kind of
comic
interesting.
is
Like,
a
all the rest were Marvel stuff, and it's like, but we get DC is the one that hooked me.
And the irony is, and I will say I was kind of an Avengers collector because that's how I landed, but I was more of a big DC Batman collector. So it is funny. It's actually a similar thing. I did collect a lot of Avengers, but it was really almost like the nostalgia of that's what got me into it. Like there was this like 3-4 year run, and that was pretty much what because I remember going to the grocery store and it's like I got my quarter, I'm good to go. Where is it? Where's the next one? And it was like once I got serious in collecting, which was in college, it was like, no, I got to have all those original ones. And I didn't care what kind of condition they were in. I just wanted to have them again. I wanted to relive that
I was
part
the same way
again.
with it. Is they say, you go to a comic store, you go to a show, and you see two different copies. Here's one for $5. It's a little beat up. Here's one that's cherry. It's $20. I'll get the $5 one because that gives me $15 more to go get more comics.
I got to be honest, at this first phase that I was going through, which again, I'm going to give total credit to the Batman movie in 1989. And then my friends saying, well, have you read comic? It's like, yeah, when I was a kid. And it was like, then you got Dark Knight Returns, Killing Joke, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Dark Phoenix. I started like, oh man, this is incredible. And I'd go to this one shop, and there'd be all these different prices, even for the same book, which of course were condition sensitive. But at the time, I didn't even know, and I didn't even care. I was like, what's the cheapest one? So my original copies of some of that stuff was like, it was like I got it for like $1.20. It's got a fold, it's got a pencil mark on it, tape tear. I didn't care. I was just in it for the nostalgia, and I was in it for the love of reading stuff that I had missed out on for decades. So it is a great journey. So all right, so that takes us